Last week gave you a quick introduction to Android programming. You developed a simple Hello World applications and another applications with slightly more input, and then you deployed it on an emulator and also deployed it on a phone. Hopefully all of you have done that. In this week we will start with the revision, but while doing the revision we will go into the detail. So let's start with your Android Studio. One more time. For all these videos, I will be using the material from developer.android.com website. This is the official Android developer website supported by Google and has all the required training material that you need to learn Android programming. Okay, some of you may have already installed Android development environment or Android Studio. Those who have not, please see the details again. For this, you will require to have a PC or a Linux or a Mac operating system with at least 2 GB of RAM and at least 4 GB of hard disk space available. The more RAM you have, better it will be. Also, the operating system must be Windows 7 or above, or Mac OS X 10.8.5 or above, or a Linux system which has a GNU/C library version 2.11 or above. Before installing Android Studio, make sure that you have installed Java successfully. One way of checking it is by running the command java-version. When you run this command, you would see what version of SDK you have installed on your machine. Please note that I use JDK or SDK interchangeably. They both mean the same. The current latest version of SDK is 8. So ideally after running this command, you should see that your installed version is indeed 8. If it is not, then you may want to upgrade your Java. Once you have installed Java, you should download the latest version of Android Studio from the developer website. The link is given here. When you start installing Android Studio, it displays you screens. All of these screens have a next button. If you go by default setting in the beginning, that will be perfectly fine. And you would have got your Android Studio installed. If you go by default settings, that would be perfectly fine and you will have your Android Studio installed in no time. After you have successfully installed Android Studio, you may start it by double clicking, and when the Android starts, it shows you a screen similar to this. It also gives you the version number of the Android Studio that is currently installed. As you can see, I have version 2.1.2 installed. As you can see, I have version 2.1.2 installed on my machine. If this is not the case, you may go into configure and update your Android Studio. Once you have successfully installed Android Studio, it is a good idea to add /tools and /platform tools to path of your system. This will allow you to launch these applications from command line. For example, once I have given these paths in Windows in the environment variables, I can just write Android on the command prompt and my Android Studio will launch from it. Android Studio comes with what we call AVD or Android Virtual Devices. Android Virtual Devices are essentially emulators. We used one of those emulators in last week to deploy our applications. Emulators allow us to develop applications even without having a physical device. This is a very useful feature because I may not own the device that I want my application to work upon. And in fact, it is pretty much impossible for somebody to own all the Android devices. However, it is not impossible to create emulators with respect to every device that is available in the market. You may also configure an AVD by specifying different hardware features such as screen size, memory capacity, or processor. Android Studio has a number of emulator templates already installed. And then you can also configure AVDs for a range of different devices. by creating custom configurations, by giving out different processor types, memory capacity, and the size and pixel density of the screen. Emulator definitions are also available for devices. These definitions can be downloaded and installed into the AVD environment. Now, hopefully by this time you have an Android Studio installed and you are ready to develop your first project if you have not already done that. If you have already done that in week 1, then I advise you to watch this video and go back to your week 1 project and start running your Android Studio side by side and then see what I am explaining here. You start creating a project by clicking new project, which displays you 4 fields. The first field is application name. Application name is nothing but the name by which your application will be known to the end user. For example, when Facebook developed its application, it named it Facebook. When Indian Railway developed its application to reserve railway tickets, it named it IRCTC. Similarly, you may name your application anything that you want. Let us say My First App or Math Quiz, which we did last time. The second field is of company domain and the third field is of package name. I would like to explain both of them together. Package name has the same concept in Android as it has in Java. A package name specifies where your class exists among other class. A package name specifies where your class exists among other classes of Java that may be available. So on the Play Store, your package name must be unique, which will mean that your application classes will be unique. The next field is company domain and after that there is package name. I will explain both of them together. Package name follows the same rules as it follows in normal Java. In fact, package name specifies your class name in a unique manner. So you must have a unique package name for all your classes. Now, how do you make sure that you have a unique package name for all your classes? Well, one way of doing this is to prefix it with your company domain name. Because you know that your company domain name is unique, you can be sure that your package name is also unique. And that's why once you give a company domain name into your Android Studio remembers it and uses it as a qualifier for each new project that you create. The last field is a project location, which is nothing but the directory location in which you will store your project. Once you have filled all these fields and click next, you come to a screen which asks you for the target. Currently our target is phone or tablet. Android Studio also gives us choice to develop applications for Android Wear, Android Glass, and Android TV. In this course, we will only be developing applications for phones and tablets, so we choose phone and tablet. The next is also very important. The next screen asks you to choose from a minimum SDK. The minimum SDK is the earliest version of Android that your app supports. And this SDK label is indicated using the API label. For example, you may have API 23 or API 21 or API 24. Setting a lower version allows your application to be deployed on a large number of devices. In fact, when you choose a version number, Android gives you a hint about the number of devices on which your app can be deployed. You may try to choose different API labels just to check how the percentage of devices change. The lower you go, higher percentage you will cover. However, the lower version you choose, if you choose a lower version, then you will not be able to use the features which are available in a higher version. So, if you want to use the latest feature, choose a higher version. If you want to choose If you want to deploy your application on multiple devices, if you want to deploy your application on a many number of devices, choose a lower number. This is a trade-off which you decide depending on your application and your target audience. The next is activity templates. Android provides you different activity templates such as basic activity, empty activity, and various other activities. In the beginning, it is good to choose just the basic activity or even the empty activity. And then Android asks you to give your activity a name. You can give your activity any name, just make sure that your first letter is capital. Just make sure that your first letter is capital. Just make sure that your first letter is capital and activity is the part of the name. This is an Android convention. Once you give the activity name, Android Studio automatically changes the names of the layout, title, and menu. Let them be as it is. And you click finish and voila. You have created your Hello World equivalent of app. In fact, this app will display you Hello World, though so far you have not written Hello World anywhere. I will explain that to you very quickly. First, let's go into the organization of your application. We did not cover this part last time, however, we will be covering it this time. As you go through the organization structure, you will find out different folders. And let's say we choose a folder app, src, main, res, layout. In that, we will have an XML file which will correspond to our activity that we have created. So if I had given the name my activity, my XML will be named as activity_my. This is the XML layout file for my activity. And this XML layout file provides me a text view and a preview of a screen UI, as you can see. The second file related to my layout is content_my.xml. This file again contains some settings, and this file also contains the text view element that is currently displaying you Hello World. This text view element is available directly from Android whenever you choose basic activity, and that's why you can see a Hello World message even if you have not written it. The third important file is the Java file. The Java file is the actual file where you will write your code. This file would again be available into app src main java / your package name / whatever name you give to your activity.java. And the fourth is a manifest file. The manifest file describes fundamental characteristics of the app and defines each of its components. We will go into detail of manifest file in some later chapters. Last week you saw that whenever we wanted to build our application and run it, we used to press an icon and it used to build our application and make it ready for running. This is done using a build tool called Gradle. Android uses Gradle to build Android projects. Android Studio uses Gradle to build Android projects. Gradle is a tool to build projects which is similar to any other build tool such as Make, Ant, or Marvin. However, Gradle is the latest of the build tools and provides many functionalities, and that's why it is chosen in Android Studio. There is a build.gradle file for each module of your project as well as a build.gradle file for the entire project. As you see, I am displaying my build.gradle file, and let's see what fields are available. So I have a field called compiled SDK version which is named 24. So compiled SDK version is the platform version against which I have compiled my application. So because I compiled my application for 24, I am getting a 24 number here. Then there is application ID. Application ID is my fully qualified package name for my application. As you can see that it has reversed my domain name to convert it into my package name. psync.replytd.ac.in.mathquiz is my application ID. Then there is a min SDK version, which is what you chose earlier. And then there is a target SDK version, which is again what you chose earlier. So min SDK version is the earliest version of Android SDK that you have supports, while target SDK version is the version of Android with which you have tested your application. The next important part in the Android project organization is the resources. Resources refer to everything that is not code. So if you are using an image, that is a resource. If you are using an audio file, that is a resource. In fact, even strings are called resources in Java, in Android. In fact, even strings are treated as resources in Android. So here you will see a /rash subdirectory which contains the resources for your application. Inside this subdirectory, you will see another directory called drawable. Drawable contains all the drawable resources of different incentives. The drawable contains all the drawable resources of different densities, but not the launcher icons. Then another directory is layout, which contains file that define user interface. We already saw activity underscore my.xml as part of the layout folder. Then we have a menu folder where there are files that define menu items. Then we have map, which contains our launcher icons. Then we have values, which contains other XML files that contain collection of resources such as strings and color definitions. This is all about Android Studio. Now let us see in our live project. Let me run my Android Studio and display it to you the same directory structure that we are talking about. You may cross-check it on your machine by running your Android Studio. And while my Android Studio is starting, please go to developer.android.com website and try to read the training material that is given there. This is your best resource. Some of you have also been asking for an Android textbook on the forum. I have already given name of few textbooks on the website. A textbook which I am using heavily is called Big Nerd Reg Guide. You type on the Google, you can go to the website of this book. This book is also available on Amazon.com. Okay, so my Android Studio has now started. Let us see. So this is the project math quiz which we have developed. Let's go into the app. And as we can see, first let's see our build.gradle. As you see, we can see the compiled SDK version, application ID, min SDK version, target SDK version, etc. Then let's go to our resource directory. We can see the drawable, you can see the folder layout. Inside layout, there is an activity quiz.xml, which is giving us a text version of XML and also a design version. And then we have different map directories with respect to different resolution. So each map directory has the launcher icon. So yes, here is the familiar default Android launcher icon. And it is available into different densities. And depending on the density of your phone screen, the right launcher icon is displayed. After that, we have a values folder, which has different other XMLs. Let's open the strings. And as you can see, all the strings that we have used are defined here. So this was a quick revision of Android Studio and Android project one more time. In fact, this is the last time that I am introducing you Android Studio, and now and onward I will assume that you have installed Android Studio and you are ready to program. So for the next classes, we will only be using concepts which are advanced, and we will not be explaining how to set up Android Studio or start an Android project. Thank you.